the Wednesday meditation service. We welcome the people that are in the sanctuary and all the people that are online. And we really hope someday you'll come back and come to the live experience so we can feel your vibration in this room. It's such a wonderful thing. We used to travel across New York City on a bus or a subway with our first child to go to a Wednesday meditation in the village at the ARE. And in that traveling to that destination, it's like you have a focus point that you're trying to get to where you're going to be with people that are of a higher consciousness to help make your days a little better and to make the world a little better. So we appreciate the people that make the time to come here, and we appreciate you out there, but we would like to see you. And if you have somebody that you'd like to pray for, you can write their name on a piece of paper. There are the papers by the prayer box, and put it into the prayer box. So we're going to start our meditation right now. This is a chant for the planet. Now's the time for transformation. Now's the time for transformation. For all people on this earth, all people on this earth, now's the time for recreation. Now's the time for a new birth. Now's the time for a new birth. We can have our land united. We can have a land united. We can have a land united. We can live in love and peace. We can live in love and peace. No more boundaries of all nations. perfections. Just one world where conflict ends. Just one world where conflict ends. Just one world where conflict ends. Time to see each one's perfection. Time to see Earth's one's perfection. Now's the time for a new birth. Now's the time for a new birth. Now's the time for transformation. For all people on this earth. Now's the time for recreation. Now's the time for a new birth. We can have a land united. We can live in love and peace. No more boundaries of all nations. Just one world where conflict ends. Time to see each one's perfection. Now's the time for a new birth.
Quite often, good morning, or good evening, good ever. Quite often, when you start out to write a talk, you sometimes write the first line down, and it gives the idea that you're probably going to get into. And you go on from there, and you feel guided to add this thought or this quote. And sometimes you do that and you get into a page of stuff, and then it all just changes, shifts. And that's when you know that the Spirit is going to have something different to relate. So I will share with you what this talk started out as. Started out with the question, what in life can you not get too much of? And the answer is balance. Balance is the answer to that question. And then I was going to talk about balance, and I got a few things going. But then it shifted. So I'm going to start this evening with what the Spirit wants to be said and not what I thought was going to be said. So we'll start with this from the Gospel of John, chapter 17, verses 13 through 17. This is the Master speaking. But now I am coming to thee, and these things I speak in the world, that they may have my joy fulfilled in themselves. I have given them thy word, and the world has hated them, because they are not of the world, even as I am not of the world. I do not pray that thou should take them out of the world, but that thou should keep them from evil. They are not of the world, even as I am not of the world. Sanctify them in the truth. Thy truth only. As thou didst send me into the world, so I have sent them into the world. And for their sake I consecrate myself, that they also may be consecrated. When speaking of his disciples, everyone in Unity should know by now that it includes everyone who is seeking the life-transforming truth. So everyone who is seriously seeking the life-transforming truth, that's who this scripture is speaking to. Because the Bible writer is not interested in telling you about the 12 disciples. They have their place here and there, but the fact is, the Bible writer is more interested in allowing the universal truth to be revealed to whoever picks up these scriptures. So, and here Jesus is offering his last prayer, his final prayer. And then he says, but now I am coming to thee, and these things I speak to the world, that they may have my joy fulfilled in themselves. I have given them thy word, and the world has hated them, because they are not of the world, even as I am not of the world. I do not pray that thou should take them out of the world, but that thou should keep them from evil. They are not of the world, even as I am not of the world. Sanctify them in the truth. Thy word is truth. We are all disciples, And a disciple is one who enters into the discipline of his or her master. So it means you're taking on the teachings and the discipline of a master. And that's who the disciples are. That's who we are. We're listening to and attempting to apply the teachings of the Master of Life. And certainly these are important teachings, because these are the teachings that are related to have been given at the Last Supper, when Jesus knew that his physical life was going to be surrendered. So we should pay attention to what is actually being related here. From a strictly historic perspective, it seems like it would have been easier to be a disciple in the time of Jesus than it is now. And that is certainly true when you think about all the material distractions, all the high-tech distractions that vie for our attention that were not available back then. Back then, the fastest thing moving in society was a donkey cart. So, to be a disciple and enter into the disciplines of the Master requires a more concerted effort in this modern day than it did back then, because we are being distracted almost continually by the media. And today it's become so absurd that there's hardly anything we can count on being absolutely true if it comes to us from the media. So what does that tell us? If we are simply bombarded by wild speculations and lies, where will we find the truth but within ourselves? So when you look at the world, and you may think sometimes that the people in this society, our Western society, are not very bright, because it may seem to you that they quite often vote against their own well-being. They vote against things that would be of real advantage to them. But that's just a demonstration of the ignorance of the outer-directed, unenlightened mind. The truth that we are seeking must come from within. And then we must hold that truth in our own awareness so that we transcend the thinking of the world, regardless of how insane it gets with the media. We have to put away the thinking of the world in order to become disciples of the truth that will make us free. Free from what? Free from being tossed to and fro by all the changing circumstances, opinions, and thinking of the world around us. So it takes faith to do that. It takes faith because what is being said in the line here, my disciples are not of the world, as I am not of the world, which means we are not going to find our way to freedom, happiness, and peace by operating in the thinking of the world. We have to be removed from it in our own consciousness so that we are in the world, yes. We carry on our lives in the world, yes. But we are not of the world. We know we have an awareness, a level of consciousness that we aspire to bring forth in our own living. We aspire to bring forth the consciousness divine in our own living. And what is difficult about that can be found in many different places, for the masters on many different levels have shared with us why we have such a difficult time getting on with peace, true love, happiness, joy. Can you imagine all the fears that go with making any particular decision in the unenlightened state of consciousness do not exist when we are true disciples involved in following the guidance that comes to us from the enlightened level of divine mind. So this then becomes truth. And this, by the way, was written by the late Brazilian Archbishop Hilda Camara. When Jesus said, "They are not of the world," meaning my disciples, this is a very good definition of what is meant by the world. By world, we don't mean creation or nature, but the system, how groups, cultures, institutions, nations organize to protect themselves and maintain their power. This is the most hidden and denied level of evil and violence. We cannot see it because we are all inside of it, and it is our ego's self-interest to protect this corporate deception. I'll read that again. The reason why we cannot be in the world and hope to find freedom is because what the world actually is when it's referred to by the enlightened beings. By world, we don't mean creation or nature, but the system, how groups, cultures, institutions, and nations organize to protect themselves and maintain their power. This is the most hidden and denied level of evil and violence. We cannot see it because we're all inside of it, and it is in our ego's self-interest to protect this corporate deception. So we were born into, raised into, educated into a system defined by an illusionary definition of life, the definition of separation, and that one must pursue his or her personal self-interest over all other considerations. And therefore, you have what constitutes that mean, inconsiderate outlook on life. You have that which brings conflict, which brings lying and cheating and stealing for the purpose of sustaining one's limited definition of life, my personal self-interest. And you can see that with the groups and the institutions that are forever propagating the illusions of separation and the specialness of these high officials, these people in high places. because we were born into it, it becomes difficult to see it. We have to learn to stand back from it and be in touch with what is truthful. And the way to do that quite often is to say within yourself, what feels right here? We don't need authority figures. When someone says they're going to restrict the voting rights of certain people, and they're going to do whatever they can do because in lockstep they can control the certain elements. But if you go within and say, does that feel right? Is that decent? And you can do this with almost anything that takes place in the political world. Does that feel right? Does that feel decent? Is that what human beings really should aspire to? I'll give you an example that will stay with you. When I lived in New York City, I lived on between Amsterdam Avenue and Riverside Drive. Riverside Drive had a beautiful park that ran along the Hudson River, and it had playgrounds for children. But unfortunately, people, New Yorkers, walked their dogs in the grass through that park. And it became more and more littered with dog droppings. Till finally I thought to myself, it was really bad. You could not find a place where you could sit down and enjoy the river and the sunlight. There was that much dog defecation on the land. And I thought to myself, what would have to happen? How deep would it have to get? No, seriously. Well, what would happen is at some point, because we in the unenlightened state are total idiots, someone would say, oh, look at this. Look at all these dog droppings. I think I'll set up booths and sell boots that people can slip over their shoes to deal with this. That would be the highest level of thinking from New Yorkers. It took a while for them to finally get around to pass an ordinance that you had to pick up after your dog. You should understand something in New York City. I don't know why people have dogs in New York City, but they have dog walkers, people they hire to walk there. You'll see people with 5, 6 dogs on leashes going through that park. And but that's because we got used to something. And that's what this is saying about the world. We were born in it. We were raised in it, so we accept it. And we accept the illusionary concepts that it propagates in our experience. So overcoming the world is overcoming that thinking that is just totally flawed. It is false from its foundation. It is a thinking based on an illusion. The illusion is that we are not brothers and sisters in a very small, fragile world. That's what it's based on. We're not. And that gives everyone then permission to conspire to do whatever he or she feels is necessary to get on to foist his or her personal self-interest and propagate it and support it and have it precede them into every situation, which makes human relationships flawed and conflict-oriented and sick. So, we are called out of that thinking. We're called out of that world. If you want to find life, can you imagine that it is possible to be in the world, in that world, but not of it? that you would have joy and happiness and peace, truth, insight, and love, understanding? Is it possible to be living in that awareness while you're still in the physical life of the world? Yes, it is. Because what you are involved in doing here in Unity is raising your consciousness into the soul consciousness divine. And in that consciousness, it is possible to look past the limitations, the foibles, the fears, the foolishness, the sickness of the outer directed, unenlightened world. And as you look beyond it, you have this level of peace and joy that is contagious. So those that are still with you on that journey to the truth, they will recognize you. But those who are not on that journey yet will think you're just the same old person because they see the illusion, believe the illusion, and project the illusion on everything they look upon. So here is the master clairvoyant. You know, lots of people have done amazing things on the level of spirit and truth. But hardly any come close to this clairvoyant, Edgar Cayce's amazing life. He has lived what I consider to be the second most amazing life. Yes, we've got, especially in Boulder, we've got all kinds of psychics and readers and people that are going to tell you about yourself and astrological configurations that are guiding your life and all that. But they can't do in the presence of legal investigators, doctors, and people of every walk of life. They cannot perform the way Edgar Cayce was able to perform and give readings from the cosmos, cosmic conscious understanding coming through him. Not his own, because what he did is he laid aside his own ego-centered consciousness and simply became an instrument for this cosmic being, God, if you will, to come through and say things and diagnose illnesses and give cures and things. If anybody reads this, and there's about 30 books written about him, about people that went to debunk him, but couldn't, and turned around and realized this guy is the most amazing man they ever met. But humble. So Edgar Cayce had this to say in the book titled Companion. The self is constantly meeting self. And as ye may learn to stand aside and watch self pass, there may come more and more the knowledge and the comprehension that it is earnest, it is real, and that the real is rather the unseen than that which is so material as to cause disappointments, fears, and those things that make the mind of man afraid. There may be circles at times, but no standing still for the development of a soul, for it is in movement, in change, that we find awarenesses have and do come and ever will be, for it is the divine law. Life and truth and understanding and happiness in its greater sense are but a growth, for you grow in grace, in knowledge, in understanding, in awareness. So I'm going to give you the lesson that I think Spirit wants me to give tonight. And I'm behind. Look at this. Norm is already out here. Just, you know. So I'm going to give you what I think is a very helpful lesson in maintaining your spiritual awareness, sustaining it and growing with it. When I began my spiritual journey, I began in the Association of Research and Enlightenment back in New York City, which was a small, tiny little couple of rooms in this really old area of the city. You had to walk up a flight of rickety stairs to get there. And that was the only place that had the Edgar Cayce stuff going on. Their big center is in Virginia Beach, Virginia, where they have all the readings. It's a gorgeous place. You should visit it if you're ever down in that area. But we had this tiny little broken down center. And what I did when we first started there was to get involved in dream interpretation, which Casey spoke about. And I went through a lot of stuff, and working with dreams on Saturday almost all day long, and then meditation. But I was involved in dream work for a long time, and after that, for a while even, Norm and I and our children would go over our dreams in the morning. But once, back then, I had a dream, and in the dream, I was walking, and it was beautiful, trees, walking on this road, and a voice came out of the cosmos and said, "You are ahead of your time." And I was, at that moment, so elated. And then the voice continued, "You are 2 weeks ahead of your time." That's a true dream. And I think I've lost that 2 weeks along the way. But then, I mean, your dreams can be disconcerting. I mean, honestly, Spirit will humble you a lot in your dreams. But in any case, I had a dream at one point when I was really into the work and meditating. I had a dream that, and in the ARE and in New York City, and at that time, there were a lot of people involved in giving astrological readings of where you're at, astrologically speaking, or doing sleep readings and doing all kinds of mind reading stuff, or where you're at, or soul conscious reading. And there was a lot of that going on. And I had this dream, and I was walking, and there was a huge mountain in front of me, and I couldn't see to either side of it. And in the dream, the voice said, "If there's a mountain in your face, do you need a dream to tell you there's a mountain in your face?" And it was so clear to me what it was saying. It was saying, you don't need to interpret your dreams. If you become honest enough, you can interpret your life. In other words, what is going on in your life is there to be interpreted. You don't need dreams to try to tell you how to get on now in your life and figure this out or work that out. You simply have to be awake enough in life to see clearly and honestly what it is that life is relating to you. And if you have specific problems that are taking place, just look at your life. And what it says here, Casey says, step aside from self. Take a look at your life without being in that personal self-interest that limits what can be related to you. So if you step aside and you're introspective and you look at what your thinking is in a particular time, you will be able to interpret what it is that life is attempting to teach you, and will help you live more effectively, more beautifully, more joyfully, more lovingly, more happily. And I think that's the lesson that Spirit wanted me to give this evening. So we'll listen to our Tibetan bowls and do what is really the work of the disciple to do at first. Simply become okay with yourself, sitting here, being in this moment, not conjecturing, thinking about how you're going to fix something in your life. Whatever limitations or fears you may have brought with you, leave them behind now. For this meditation, just become willing to be sitting here, experiencing the more refined level of being. Being okay with yourself is the way to do that. Being okay with the moment as it is, not trying to figure it out. And then when we get to that place in silence, you may want to just hold this mantra, this thought, to keep the mind gently focused in the moment. God is love. Love is life. I am God's life. I am. I am. Breathe in the I, breathe out the am. God is love. Love is life. I am God's life. I am. I am. I am. in this refined level of awareness. Let us offer the names of those that have been submitted to our prayer list. When Norma calls the name, you can simply let the thought, "You are whole," go to that name.
Pamela, John Stovall, the Bishop family, Les Stansell, Carol Block, Marie Thorson, Spencer Goblig, Teresa, Rihanna Gray, Jonathan, Corky Volt, Terry Bilyeu, Jamie Bilyeu, Jeremy Seal, Jason Seal, Brandy H., Cindy Allen and Mother Ann, Joe Plummer, John, Richard, James B., Lauren J., Tyler, Sandy Spahn, Tim S., Sandy Chamberlain, Sandy Bigtree. Awareness in all our government representatives of the environment and to vote accordingly. May our government official represent all their constituents. Peace in Ukraine. Ukrainian people and soldiers. The air, water, earth, all life on planet Earth. And you can call out a name at this time if you like to do so. We see this healing light surrounding the prayer box. And all the people whose names have been submitted. We see them healed, physically, mentally, and spiritually.
Let us take a moment to consider this divine awareness rising now in the consciousness of everyone sharing the Boulder community with us. And this divine consciousness sharing the awareness of the brotherhood and sisterhood of humanity, rising in the consciousness of everyone sharing the state of Colorado with us. And this divine consciousness spreading to all the people sharing these United States of America with us. And it moving throughout the consciousness of everyone in every culture, in every race, in every nation of the world, bringing that divine awareness of the interconnectedness of everything that lives in the consciousness divine. And this moving into the relationships between all human beings and all the creatures on planet Earth and all the creatures in the rivers and waterways of the world, all the vegetation, all the forests, everything that is being raised into the new heaven consciousness. As we pray, the light of God surrounds us. The love of God enfolds us. The power of God protects us. The presence of God watches over us. Wherever we are, God is, and God is love. To this we say, Amen. We will take an offering for unity now. And all of you that are watching on live stream, you can scroll down to that button that says donations, and it will tell you how you can donate to Unity of Boulder. Let's bring to mind that financial gift we'd like to make to Unity of Boulder. And let's bless that gift with this offering prayer. Divine love, through me, blesses and multiplies all that I have, all that I give, and all that I receive, because I give. And so it is. Join me now, please. We dedicate this tithe to the will and the work of the Spirit of truth, the Spirit available to each of us, the Spirit that joins all of us. We dedicate this tithe to the victory of the Spirit of truth. Amen.
We have refreshments.
We have refreshments in the bookstore if you'd like to stay and chat through these doors to your left. And
the way Heather sets up the bookstore, it is so beautiful. And you must even just go see it. The displays and all the beautiful items that she has. I mean, she has a talent that is beyond. And we are so blessed to have Helen, to have her. I mean, she was a gift from God for us. So we're so blessed.
Santisha will be back in the pulpit on Sunday at the 11 o'clock service. I will be speaking about radical healing at the 9 a.m. service. The most radical healing. All right, to all of you, thanks for showing up. Have a good night.